Good evening. Welcome. A good group here. Should be a great program tonight. Looking forward to it. My name is Paul Ehrlich. I'm the president of the Minnesota Woodworkers Guild. And I get 10 minutes before the good stuff on to talk a little bit about the Guild. So those of you who may or may not be familiar, the Guild has about 850 members. We've been around for I don't know how long, long time. Much longer than I've been involved in the Guild. And we have a number of activities that we do which are involved with the craft of woodworking. This is a great example. We do monthly programs. Every month we do programs. Next month because we have our expo coming up. But we do monthly programs every month. Generally they're here, but our program in November is going to be at Willy Willett Shop. That should be an interesting one. And in the winter, when nobody wants to go and drive right in the winter, we actually do a lot of our meetings on Zoom, and one of our most popular programs is we actually do shop tours. Matt and his team on the programs committee have been out filming shop tours, and those should be really exciting. We also do two big events a year. We do a show every April that's at Eden Prairie Center called Northern Woods Exhibition. It's a judged, juried show. It's fantastic pieces. I actually see a number of winners sitting in the room right now. Some wonderful pieces that show up there. Our other big event is we do something called the Woodworkers Expo. And Ron and Norbert, the chairs of the Woodworkers Expo, they're walking around here. Woodworkers Expo is coming up. It's going to be at the State Fairgrounds in the Progress Building on October 11th. And if you have been to the fair, when you go through the building, it says Eco Experience. It's actually called the Progress Building. We had it there last year. It was a fantastic event. We had about 2,000 attendees. We're hoping to get even more this year. We've got a full slate of exhibitors, a lot of great folks coming in to exhibit. And also this year, for the first time ever, we're going to have an exhibit. Last year we had an exhibit of Northern Woods winners, very, very exciting. But we're going to have another exhibit of just Guild member pieces. A kids workshop, demonstrations, just a ton of stuff going on. Before that, the week before, there's going to be a little piece on WCCO News and the Saturday morning program about the expo that the committee's doing. So lots of great stuff going on. Another big advantage of being part of the Guild is that we have a number of supporters and sponsors that work with our organization, and they offer discounts for our members. And it's everyone from tool suppliers like Rockler and Woodcraft to hardwood suppliers. Some of them many of them are local, but some of them are national. There's a whole long list of folks that give discounts up on our website. Great reason to be involved. The final reason to be involved is education. And we are in the process right now of building a brand new education program. We hope to be doing a number of classes, ideally starting later this year. So anybody that's interested in education, pull me aside and see me about it. A couple of things to highlight before we get going here. On the 29th of August, last Friday of August, we did a demonstration day at the State Fair. Roger, you were there doing design. Ron was there actually doing wood bending. Maybe some of the stuff you'll see tonight again. I did joinery. Charlie did finishing. We had pieces on epoxy, on CNC. We actually had 11 demonstrations that ran from 9 in the morning until 8 o'clock at night. Had a lot of people that came and experienced things with the Guild. A lot of new members that signed up. Really a great event. But the most exciting thing is we have 30 volunteers that were involved with it, and it was just great to see all the volunteers and the Guild members that were able to help out and really help the public learn more about our craft. And thanks to all of those folks. We have a couple of other volunteer projects going on. One of them is a project that we got involved in, I guess, 2 years ago. The Wood Turners group started as part of a national program called Beads for Courage. They started turning wood beads for kids that were going through cancer treatment. So every time a kid would have a procedure or a blood draw or something, as a reward, they would get this bead, and they would collect these beads in little containers that the turners had made for them, and they could tell the story of their treatment through these beads. And the staff came back to several of the hospitals came back to the turners and said, this is great, but all the kids make it. And when a kid doesn't make it, and we'd like to do a memory box for the kid, for the family, the cards, the letters, the beads, the whole bit going into it. We've been buying these boxes at Amazon and covering them with wrapping paper. Would you help us make some nice little boxes? So we started, Jay, 2 years ago or so, and we made how many? Started in 2024, we made a few hundred boxes, right? It's a little over. What? I think it's a little over 100 boxes. A little over 100 boxes. And we continue doing this. Todd Laubach, who's been running this, has got a bunch of other conflicts. We're looking for volunteers to help out. Jay's going to help, and he needs some other folks to help him. If you're interested in being involved in the memory boxes. By the way, the CNC state got involved last year. We started making boxes also for families that lost an infant in a neonatal pre-birth loss. We started making these pieces. We made another 40 boxes for that program. So there's a bunch of things. We're also had interest in a new program. Got contacted by one of the hospitals if we'd be interested in helping wig stands for people going through cancer treatment. The Turners have asked us to work together on that. And there's anybody who's interested in that, see me or send me a note if you're interested in helping out with that program. Everything we do in this organization is based with volunteers, and all of our efforts are volunteer led. And we need more and more folks to be involved as volunteers. Matt, who's on our board and leads our program committee, has been actively out recruiting for program committee volunteers. Our education committee is looking for volunteers. But we need help in about half a dozen different areas. I just sent an email out yesterday. There's links. Send me a note if you're interested in volunteering. It could really help out for a lot. Our program for tonight is very exciting. It's on wood bending. We have 3 of our long-term members, Mark Laub, Roger Knudson, and Ausen. We're going to demonstrate that. But before I introduce them, I'd like to do 2 final things. One is we have a tradition of introducing. I think anybody who this is your first time with the guild or your first meeting, if you'd like to just stand up and do a really brief introduction. Anybody who's new tonight? Ours to stand up. Yes, sir. Hans?
Hans Friedenbach, I'm a new member. A little bit late for an earlier meeting with Paul.
And Hans is not only a member; he's also one of our supporters and sponsors. And you're actually one of our sponsors for the expo, which we really appreciate.
Great.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
I'm fairly new as well. I tried it once about 3 years ago. I made 1 or 2 meetings and realized I just did not have the time. So I'm going to try it again.
Great.
Get here a little bit more. I got young kids at home. And
yeah, it's a challenge. Thank you very much. Anybody else? All right. Oz, you help me with the drawing? Sure. We got great prizes. Does everybody have their ticket?
oh,
No? Who does not have a ticket? Handsome gentleman was giving them out.
now I'm going to love it.
All right.
What's the prize? You need a ticket, all right?
All right. So we have a lot of prizes tonight. This first one, this is a great one. $50 gift certificate for Lee Valley. Anybody know how to spend $50 at Lee Valley?
I never got off the seat.
You know how to only spend $50. And the winner is, last 3 digits are 869. 869.
That's me.
That's me. We run later. Congratulations. There you go, Ron. Yeah. I thought you were going to win the clue. Can I do the screws together?
Sure.
Is that okay?
Yep.
I've got screws from McFeely's. Some different types of screws. Every time I go to Menards, my wife says, "You need more screws again?" 882. All right. Congratulations. Thank you. Yeah, we always make fun of this, but you can't have enough. Maybe you would. 872. 872, right,
Blake.
Blake. Oh. So a diamond sharpener. From the sharpener people, 2 different grits. 862.
Yeah.
All right, congratulations. No, you're. We won't be doing anything. Save it for next. Here is a router bit center depth gauge from our friends at Rocker Woodworking. 859. Oh, there you go, right. All right, 2 prizes left. We have a saw blade. This is the we're down to the 6.5 inch saw.
Yeah.
I had to read the other one I had because I have 6.5 inch saw. 902. Right. Hope you have a 6.5 inch. Find a better one. And our final one. Another gallon of Typhon 2. 890. Thank you. Thanks. So our program tonight is on wood turning. I'm a kind of a linear woodworker. I like to do things that are straight and square, but every once in a while it's fun to really mix it up and do something different. We have 3 different guild members tonight who are going to talk about wood bending and to demonstrate various different ways to do it. Roger, were you going to start this off? Would you like to go? So I'd like to start by introducing Roger Knudson, Mark Laub, Ron Ausen.
Well, there are 3 of us tonight doing 3 methods of bending wood. Probably because my case, because I can't build anything straight anyway. So Mark will be using bending plywood in a vacuum bag. I'll be doing laminate bending, and Ron will be doing steam bending. So here we go. Mark Laub, woodworker extraordinaire.
My name is Mark Laub. I'm one of the old timers in the guild. I'm celebrating my 25th year of doing this professionally, which isn't bad because I didn't start until after 50. And they're the best years of my life. The guild is an amazing organization. Joining the guild is a no-brainer. So it's been a great experience. I've shown in galleries from coast to coast. Taken top honors at the Smithsonian twice. Part of it is I got a different bent on design. And I always employ curves. And I hope that, how many of you have a vacuum bag or employ curves in your work? Wow, not many. How many would like to, but just don't know how? Okay. I think you're in the right place. Each of these 3 techniques that you're going to see complement one another. There's no right way or wrong way. So I'm going to talk about vacuum bag. And what I'll do is I'll start out by suggesting the equipment that you need and where you can get it. Then I'll talk about the supplies that you'll need. How do you put together a sandwich that is going to stay in a curved shape when you're all done with it? And if I pass over something, should you have a question, please shout out. I've been doing this a long time. And it's magic. what you can do with a vacuum bag is magic. I'll be talking about inside the bag technique, which is what you'll use it for 99% of the time. Roger will be talking about when you put the form in the bag and your plies outside the bag, which is another variation on that technique. But whichever technique you use, I'll start out with the pump. I suppose there's a lot of places you can get a pump, but the two that I know that are really good organizations. Joe Woodworker has free plans online, and he also sells kits. I don't know what they are price wise. Maybe 300 on the low end and 600 on the high end, or something in that range. I know guys that are really handy mechanically and they just build their own. Most of the things that I've seen that guys build on their own is either way underpowered. You know, they get some Ziploc bags of a bicycle pump. It's just not gonna work. Or the bunch of the guys get some big pump off a diesel truck and thinking bigger is better. No. Gooder is better. So I fall to the side of purchasing something that's good. But by the time I put my stuff in the bag, the consequence of an error is unthinkable. I don't want an equipment failure. So Joe Woodworker has got great tutorials that you can read online and study up. You need to buy your stuff if you want. I'm a fan of vacuum press. Daryl Heil is a great guy, very accessible for questions that you have. And he's got a lineup of pumps going from a fairly small continuous run pump all the way up to big professional ones. This is kind of at the upper end. This is the upper end of professional model. And whichever pump you look at, there's two things to pay attention. How much vacuum can it draw? And you want to be aiming at maybe 25 or 26 inches of mercury. If you do the math, which I can't do, but I read it, that pump pulling 25 will put 1,700 pounds on a 2x4 plat. And that's enormous. So you need something that will pull around 25, but I think most of them do. The second thing that you'll pay attention to, how many CFM, how fast will that pump get the air out of the bag? And sometimes, especially for beginners, if you have something that's pulling air out too fast, that's something I'd be careful of. This will pull air out pretty quickly, but at it for a long time. As you see on the demo, you may want a little bit of extra time to smooth out wrinkles in the bag and just make sure that the bag isn't tucking up under your sandwich. So if you get some big giant pump thinking that you're ready to go, you may have found that you have over purchased. So you need a pump, you need a bag. Now I know guys that make their own bags. Most of them I've seen, quite frankly, I wouldn't trust them. But if you're on a super budget, you know, I suppose you can buy a tube of plastic and put closures on both ends and make it work. You can buy bags at Joe Woodworker. I get mine again at Vacuum Press. I've done business with them for a long time and I trust them. The bags come in a wide variety of sizes. I have big giant ones and I've got this little 2x4 or 2x5 actually, which is good for smaller stuff. The big bag is when you have a big form, giant panel that you need to put in. There's two types of bags. There there's poly bags and vinyl bags. Vinyl bags, I would steer, it used to be that poly bags were way more expensive than vinyl, and it scared some people. But check out the pricing. The price of vinyl has gone up and the price of poly has come down. So poly is nice because it's got great memory. You know, when you put a form in there, the bag is stretching. And when you take the air out of it, you want the bag to come back to its original form. You don't want it to be all distorted, which is what will happen with a vinyl bag. Vinyl bags are also cloudy, and you don't really get a clear view of what's going on. So this is the poly bag. You can get it in 20 mil or 30 mil, depending on how much you use it. I get the 30 mil because I'm using it daily, but you can get it in 20 mil, save $100, and probably is the way to go. Poly bags are also more resilient to damage. Obviously, when you're pulling that much pressure on the bag, and say you accidentally left a screw in the bag, I wonder who could have done that. Or there's a sharp corner that you got to round off. A vinyl bag is much more susceptible to damage than a poly bag. You'll also need, these are standard closures now, are these kind of C-clamps, I think they're called. It's a round tube with a channel that fits over it. Very easy to do. The next thing that you'll need is a platen. That's kind of a resting spot for your work. And it's just a flat piece of wood, nothing fancy. This is an old one. I would make my platen out of melamine because it's impervious to glue sticking to it. What you'll do is you'll saw 1/8 inch deep grid lines with your table saw. You just put a grid work here, and you see that it's got an evacuation right here that fits onto the nipple and the bag. Were it not for that, air would get trapped. So your air is being evacuated out of this hole, and it goes along this gridwork channel, and it gets it sucking out of there uniformly. You can make a bunch of different size platens, as I have, depending upon the work that you're going to be doing. Okay. You can use a vacuum bag and a flat pan for flat pressing. You know, with all of that pressure, it eliminates the need for calls and clamping. You can see your work. And so that's what I do. But it's a luxury. If you only press flat panels, you can't get by with calls and clamps. I do curve, and that's where the vacuum bag is just magic. Because you'll build a form. And I think, Roger, between us, we have 18 forms. I'll go to Roger a form and say, don't you dare return it. But there's a weird thing about the universe. The second you throw away a form with a certain radius in the next project, or worse yet, you're working on something and your idea would call for a radius of X, but you've got a bending form that's close but not right on X. So what? Real-time re-engineering. But bending the curved panel that you're making will only be as good as the bending form that you made. It it's a shitty bending form, your panel will be square and true. So, I won't get into all of the details about building a bending form, except that it's mounted on a flat piece of wood. It's got, this is a small one. It's got ribs that I space, I don't know, 4 or 5 inches apart. And if it's bigger, you use a double rib on either end to keep it from collapsing. Remember, there is an enormous amount of pressure on this thing. So if you do a flimsy job, it will crush it. It'll just crush it. So they're not much fun to make, but do it right, and Roger will always take the cast offs. Remember, when you're building your form, you've got your idea or the pattern to work up. This form is the inside radius of your curved bends. So you got to make sure that when you're building the ribs, that you subtract from that radius the thickness of the skin that you're going to put on the form. So just pay attention to the geometry that you want and just start subtracting until you get the rib size, and then you can put the skin on. The last thing that I do to keep the panel from sticking is I just put some packing tape on it, and I put a grid work. One is the center line, and the other grid work is just, to make sure that you're putting everything square and true on the form. If you put it, you guys can imagine, if you put it on crooked, well, you're gonna have a very interesting shape when you square it up. Especially with the elliptical form. So, that's the form. What I'll be demonstrating is a bending fly sandwich. So, have you guys heard of bending fly? All it is plywood with the grain going the same direction. So this happens to be 1/8 inch, and it'll bend this way, but not so much this way. It comes in a wide variety of thicknesses. I'm fond of 3/8. This is 3/8.
Where do you buy your bending ply?
Forest Products does a good job, and if they don't have it, they can order it.
Okay.
And virtually all of the panels in my stuff, I aim at 5/8. The 3/4 is just too clunky, and 1/2 inch might be too diminutive. So, 5/8 for my sensitivity is a nice thickness. And all you do is you glue the sandwich together, put a base veneer on, and a back veneer, and you're ready to go. I have lost all of my courage in my old age. I have a tendency to use veneers that are very expensive, or if they're shop sawn veneers at 5/64 with a bunch of inlay or marquetry. I don't dare do the whole sandwich at once. So although we will tonight, what I'll usually do is make the substrate. This is cheap stuff. If you blow it, so what? You just make another one. So step one is to do your sandwich. Step two, then would be come back and put your face veneer and your back or veneer. Much easier and less stressful. We'll be doing, this is some quarter ton sapele. And when we get this in the bag, especially with thin commercial veneers, it's really essential that you don't develop air pockets. And the best way I found is on the top side, I use the vacuum net. Practice on the wood that you're using. Some woods are very soft. If this a vacuum net might make a small, it might telegraph onto the wood. Easily sand it out, but it gets really shocking. So try it out. It works virtually all the time. On the bottom, on the cave curve, a lot of times it has a tendency to develop wrinkles. And so I put a little padding between the form and the sandwich. And this helps the pressure even its way out on that inside concave side of the panel. And so when you're working on all this stuff by yourself, especially when you have a lot invested in whatever you're doing, and it's big, it can be nerve-wracking. So especially when you're beginning, it might be helpful to have a partner if your project is bigger. Or what I've done, because I have no body strength left, I have a dedicated table for my vacuum pressing, and I have a little rolling cart that's exactly the same height as that table. So I can do all the prep work and just slide it into the bag. I also have, this becomes more apparent when you have a big bag, I have a pair of spring clamps on the ceiling, and I can lift up the top part of that bag and clamp it in place. So I'm not fighting a bunch of different things at the same time. Glue. For work, I'm really fond of the Unibond dot. And one way to go down a rabbit hole is to start talking about glue. And I'm just telling you what works for me. There are two choices. One is the best of the best of the best, and it's Unibond 800. The old formulation was much better, but it had way more formaldehyde in it. But it wasn't as sensitive to temperature. I would gladly bring the formaldehyde and have a glue. You didn't have to watch so carefully. So this is a more user-friendly thing. It performs pretty well in most temperatures. Sometimes when it's getting cool, like in the winter in your shop, just have an electric. Get one on your own. Don't take your wife's. That was exhibit 35 in my divorce. You know what the electric blanket is. So anyway, be prepared if the weather is cooler. This is a two-part system, a formaldehyde-based urea, and then a catalyst. This comes in a bunch of different colors, so usually it comes in different colors. The nice thing about this is you can get a blocker with it that keeps it from pushing through the pores. But I found that with this vacuum net, if some of the glue wants to push through the pores of the wood when you're pressing it, what you get is a bunch of little beads. Whereas if you use what I used to use, a piece of bendy ply, you get it's just all mushed over and it's a bear to get rid of. So I like the vacuum net, no thickener, and this, I think it's the best available on the market, in my opinion. The other product that Unibond has is Unibond One. And this is a PVA, but it's formulated so, you know how tight bond and stuff, you know, even when it's dried on your bench, it's plastic. And you can see it. I cut this is Unibond One and look at it. You know, so it dries. I use this all the time. If the curve I'm working with is going to be captured, and a dado or a rabbit, if it's going to be mechanically captured, forget about this. I'll use this because it's so much easier. One part, this is cleans up with water. This cleans up with water only if it's not started catalyzing. If it has, you just have to pitch it and the cups and everything else. So this is a little messier. There's also more waste with this. That's the other downside because I don't want to be in the middle of a glue up and run out. So I always over mix and it's wasted. So I would think for most of you guys, especially for a delicate curve like this, one is the way to go. Unibond 800, if it's a more acute curve, that's not going to be mechanically held in place. Neither of these have any spring back that's appreciable. So,
Does the Unibond one have creep?
no, I mean, that's the beauty of it, Steve. You know, I know there's guys like Tom Trump that uses, white glue, but his stuff isn't curved. I trust this. The creep is minimal. It's very brittle, it's hard, but if you're concerned about it, this is your alternative. Both by the same company, great company, and Daryl Heil, the owner of the company, is just a genius with glues under a particular application. So, demo time. Is there anything that I missed that you guys are wondering about?
What was the material you're putting on the underside?
This stuff is, you know what this is? I visit our local glass shop. This is the stuff that they put between panes of glass when they ship it. They got a shitload of that stuff, they'll give it to you. Oh, rumor has it Roger Knudson's got about a 50-year supply. Yeah,
I ordered a roll of this foam stuff. The only thing I could get was about 5,000 yards of this stuff. So anybody wants some, you have to drag the Finlayson out.
This is only necessary when you're using commercial veneers that are thin on the concave side. I have a tendency to use metals, cadmium and copper, so that's a whole different thing. But if you're using commercial veneers on the underside, I would encourage you to use the stuff unless your bending form is just perfect, and it won't be. So let me get started. Roger, if you could give me a hand. Well, Roger and I have known each other for a long time, and our design aesthetics are the same. We just enjoy curved work. It just opens up a universe of magic. Roger also likes a gin and tonic or two.
Before the glue up.
We had a bet. Roger started talking to me about some whiskey that if you put a full bottle of gin in this vacuum bag, I was going to try it. Will it break it? Because it's not completely full.
Right.
So much more boring demo.
Sounds like a waste of a good bottle of gin.
Yeah, that's why I'll let him try.
Okay, Roger, could you get the that cake? when you're doing this, in your shop, it goes really fast. There's a quarters. So let's see. That'll be last. Oh. What I do, because this thing needs to be like, I'll get a little pencil mark, that's the center of these panels. So when I'm putting it on here, I can match it up with the center line that I've drawn on the bedding. And since you don't want to put a pencil line right on your basement area, you put a piece of tape with a little hash mark there. So everything is all kind of aligned before you put a vacuum on. So let's. The vast majority of veneer failures that I've seen in my corner of the world, it isn't necessarily the type of glue you're using, it's how much glue you're using. Virtually all of the problems I've seen, guys are just putting on too much glue. God, you know. And when a vacuum bag presses it, it's going to look for little irregularities and there'll be a pocket. So I do spend a rush through here, but shop, I spend a fair amount of time making sure I have a light but even coated glue. That's not heavier in some areas and lighter in others. You may think you're wasting your time. No, you aren't. Because if it's a nice, even light coat, it'll probably be successful. I found that, what is this, neoprene, a rubber roller works best with Unibond 1. This is from Rockwood. One of the few things I have from Rockwood that I love. It's easy to clean. So anyway.
The setup time for this is also long. So we're using white glue, we're always in a rush, panicking, and then it starts to set up. This has a long 25-30 minute.
Oh, I don't know if it's that long, but it's long. This, maybe you're thinking of Unibond 800.
Well, I've been up to over a half hour with that sometimes.
Well, why don't you do it? I'll take a nap. This has.
Oh, I'm next, I want my turn.
This has got, the Unibond 800 does have a very long a long pot life, a long working time. Okay, ready? Let's go.
Mark, that's got a texture to it, looks like little dimples on there or something like that.
Here,
It's a groove.
grooves. Yeah.
Up there on project to either all this way, then all this way, and then all this way again. So make it nicely, evenly spread.
When you're building your sandwich, and it's curved, you want to make sure you have at least 2 glue lines. One glue line is good enough if it's captured, but if it's not captured, you absolutely need 2 glue lines. So I put some glue on the 1/8 inch, put down the 3/8.
Mark, why don't you put glue on both sides?
Why don't I do what?
Put glue on both sides of the wood. Instead of just.
Oh, you know, I never have. I just never have.
I always do.
It's a two-word expression that works really well in virtually all the teams. The last one is you.
I've been told that many times by Mark. We actually work well together. Tonight. You're gonna put the veneer on too.
Yes, yeah, I'm gonna put the veneer in, which if you're doing this for the first time again, do your substrate, then come back and do the veneers, because when this veneer, I mean, you never put glue on the veneer because it'll suck up the moisture and it turns into a potato chip. You always put it on the substrate, like it's important to get that veneer onto the substrate, wet substrate, as fast as possible and tape it in place so it can't move any. No, but we need to get our. This is good sitting. It'd be nice if we had that.
All right.
That's perfect. Sure. Just inserting the brass fitting through the bag and into the planet. Okay. Now we can get. Hey, Roger, can you get some blue tape ready?
Hey, Paul, just to give when the
Yes,
that people can.
yes,
Check out.
yes, yes. You'll have a few tools available for lending. A vacuum bag and pump is one piece.
Does the guild have a back and bag?
We're in the website, yes, I've never seen it, but I.
Well, that might be a useful way to try this out. Seriously, you guys, a vacuum bag will take the mystery out of so much of your technical problems you might be facing with curb cans. My life changed when this became a staple in life.
Mine too.
Okay. Can't wrap it around. Okay, last step.
I've been known to put on too much sometimes. Get a scraper and get a rag, scrape it off. Or you get an even. Add lumps. There's too much glue. The vacuum bag doesn't squish it out all the way, so you know, and you got a mess then.
I bought a used iron one time to flatten it out.
This glue don't do that.
I didn't use that guy.
The absolute worst are woods that, like big leaf maple, quilted, or certain types of rolls, where there's a huge variation in the density of the wood. They can be really prone to give you problems on the inside. What do you think, boss? One more this way? You know, this way?
Yeah.
This way. Put the eight, the people are saying which. Yes.
Mark, if you've done double bevel marquetry.
Yes.
Can you put it on that and bend a curve or
Yeah.
will the pieces pop?
You can't go real acute curve. But put packing tape on top of your marquetry. So it kind of it can't go anywhere. No, we're good to go. Okay, now we're done. And I should mention, when you're, don't cut your pieces to size. Always leave, I mean, sometimes I'll leave an inch all the way around each perimeter. Because remember, the next step, and we won't cover that tonight, is once you get the panel out of the bag, you gotta square it up longitudinally and lengthwise. And so you always want some room to move. And what I do, I line this thing up. Yeah. But I just take a little screw it in place. It's overkill. It's overkill with this, and it will muck things up, but that's why you cut it big.
I think you're doing this alone. You don't have another pair of hands. And screwing it to the form really helps when you start pushing the bag, the catches on the bag, it goes all over the place.
Yeah, thanks for reminding me to put the padding. This is a bitching about my glue tab. Okay, put the padding on the side. Vacuum that on the top. Imagine you're working on a panel that's got a week's worth of marquetry. It's like, wow. You take an extra blood pressure. Okay,
Mark, did you put this in? I looked away.
yes, I did. Yeah. So again, if you're setting up your own vacuum bag station, a rolling cart, because forms can get quite heavy. There's that big one we did that I can hardly. So that helps. Having some spring clamps to hold your bag. And also an old David Mark's, trick. If your bag is leaking somewhere, the vast majority of the times, it's in the closure. And so it just knee-jerk with me. Have a damp sponge and go over the poly and get it moistened. For some reason, it works. Well, the bag or the pump is going out of the bag. I kind of make sure that nothing is creeping up underneath the finger. And what a vacuum that does, it eliminates having to worry about these wrinkles. The bag is all wrinkled. I don't have to worry. You'll see when it comes out that the vacuum that has allows even pressure, even though the bag itself in some places is further away.
Yeah. See?
How quick do you have to clean up your brush?
Sorry.
How quick do you have to clean up your roller?
Well, I'm gonna do it right now.
All right.
Any questions before we move on to Roger? Are you next? Okay, one down, two to go.
Okay.
I do have one question. How long will you leave it in the bag?
Oh, you know. There's another way. You guys. Sometimes I'll leave it in a minimum of 2 to 3 hours with your body. Sometimes I'll leave it in overnight. Some people say, oh, the we can't do it if you don't know whatever. It's engineering. Yeah, over my head. It's got no place in reality. So, yeah, it varies. I would leave it in there at least 1 or 2.
Any reflections of using a 2-part epoxy?
I'm sorry?
Any reflections on using a 2-part epoxy?
You mean like West 105? I use it for a lot of applications, but not this. It just seems to me, I don't know, to be too messy. I've not tried it, so I can't speak intelligently about it.
You can't get an even thickness.
Sorry?
You cannot get an even thickness. So
I
it's-
suppose not, yeah. Yeah, I'm just an old, I'm just a old guy that when I find something that works, I stick with it. Although I use a ton of it in the shop, but for other applications.
Thanks, Mark.
Yeah.
My shop is probably a little bit colder than his shop. So if I do a glue up in the afternoon, I'll leave it overnight from the next morning, take it out. But the surprise of this whole thing, when we're done with our other presentations, that should be set up and he'll take it out of the bag, show you. Well, it's a marvelous way to do bending. And the bending plywood allows you a lot of flexibility. And I'll talk about that in a little bit. But I'm going to talk about bend laminations, where you get a piece of solid wood, you slice it into a bunch of slices, bend it over a form. Now I like curves, he likes curves. There's a lot you can do. I've only got one shape form tonight. That doesn't mean it has to be this, it can be anything like that. This is one form, this is another form, and this is yet another. With, up and down. So to make it really simple, you get a piece of wood that you like. You make a bunch of slices, but you make a mark somewhere like this so you can reassemble them in the same order which they were sawn. Because you're trying to attain the same grain lines as possible. You're going to lose some of it with saw curves. So I will cut my slices on the bandsaw because I don't want to lose all of what saw curve with the table saw. And with a good blade, you can get some pretty nice cuts. But I don't want any gaps. And when I glue this together, I don't want to see gaps between the laminations. It just doesn't look good. So I then use a drum sander, run them through to smooth both sides. I run them through all at the same time. So these have been cut out of this block. So when I mess them all up, I can get it back into order using the alignment lines that I have. So that's simple. Everybody knows how to use a bandsaw. If you don't have a drum sander, you can put them through your planer. But you start getting this thin, and it's going to blow up a few. The grain comes wrong. You can even put it on a little sled, because your planer usually doesn't get this thick. And the thicknesses you cut them are really based on your own personal preferences and how easy it is to bend. Okay, so you get these too thick. Oh yeah, you can bend them. You can bend them. You get enough big clamps, and you go to your neighbors and get some more big clamps. Get some blocks of tackle, fit the bar back, and then you take it out of the glue and boom. All right. Speaking of glue, I've used yellow glue, traditional yellow glue on these. However, just I can feel, and you can feel if you were to do this, there's quite a bit of spring in that thing. And yellow glue will creep. Like he said, it doesn't dry glass hard like the Unibond. So the Unibond would be a really good glue for bent laminations, especially if you have a pretty tough bend. Because it does not creep. Probably won't get spring back. The other thing you can do is just keep making your laminations thinner and thinner and thinner. And that's nice. Now, working with a piece that's bent like this, let's say in a U shape, you're making a chair leg, but you want to taper it both directions. Well, you start tapering, you're starting to cut across these lambs and get a bunch of glue lamb lines. Not nice. So you're limited that. What you can do, and I'm not going to demonstrate it tonight because it's another whole thing, is you can make tapered laminations, even double tapered lamination. I've made a U-shaped support for a table. It's thicker in the middle and the ends thinner. Make a jig to run through your planer that allows the place to sink down as it goes through the pressure rollers. You get a thin end here, a thin end here, and thick in the middle. And then when you finally bend them, you'll have thicker in the middle, thinner on the end. You can shape them this way, and the nicer your glue lines are, the tighter these are, then as you start making rounded curves, the glue lines aren't going to be as visible. Dark woods show the glue lines the least. Lighter woods show the glue lines more. It's natural. The other thing is, if you can get a piece that on the edge grid, if you just go right over the edge, the straight grain is here. Right? There's not the cathedrals or stuff on the edge. So when you have a straight grain on the edge, it's less visible when you get it finished. Now it's not very hard to clamp up. I didn't bring all the clamps. So if I use just clamp, I start in the middle. Tighten it. I also make sure I get the down. Because I have this backing piece. You know, so that I have something to push them against to make them go together. I also have packing tape. So you don't glue them to the form. You know, why do I know that? I also find that if I just put this straight onto the form and I start clamping them. If I don't, let's see. If I don't clamp enough, and I can't do it here, you'll sometimes get a gaps here. So I need another clamp and another clamp and another clamp. But I can get away with fewer clamps if I use a caul. When I use the caul using masonite, like the masonite strip, you only need to tape them in the middle, because as soon as you bend it, the tape breaks. That spreads from the clamping point, it spreads the pressure out at 30 to 40 degrees. So you get more clamping spread better using a caul. In that case, it's really no different. Put this pieces in, put the caul next. Proceed on round. Now, you couldn't see it back there, but I can see already that these are tighter than it was before without this caul. Right, that's really straightforward, really simple. The key again, cut your laminations as thin as you can. Try them out. If you want them thick, try to pre-bend it. See how much pressure there is. Try to get the lamination smoothed. If you have a drum sander, that's really handy. Yes.
Do you see a difference between naturally dried wood and gilt dried wood as far as its bendability?
Yes, but not in bent laminations. Because you're reducing all of the stuff because they're thin. Well, you don't have to have the straight grain going. You know, if you want to have some pattern in the edge that you have, but you might get some breakage, snappage. But using a caul sometimes really helps prevent that too. Right, so no secret there. Spread your glue on both surfaces like toilet. You don't need to slather this stuff on so it's just dripping all over the table. We just don't need that much. Wasted anyway. And then let it dry. Now spring back. We don't want, if you're gonna make a piece that's supposed to fit between here and here on whatever you're making, you don't want to take it out of the thing and going starts opening up. And it can do that sometimes. So experience will tell you what, and you talk about more of that, I hope, on steam bending. The spring back is a kind of an unknown, and it's kind of guess what to do, make it form 10% more curve, I don't know. So the one thing that you can sometimes, but rarely do on a vacuum bag is have a concave. Let's have a double curve. Positive curve and negative curve. Sometimes the bag will not form down there like bridge. So you can get away with, I've gotten away with it a few times. With clamping, however, You can clamp all around the lamination regardless of the bend. All right, that's a straightforward thing. Curves are great. I like them a lot. Mark likes them a lot. Like I said, I don't know how to make straight things anyway, so. Now here, this is a little curved piece. And actually it's 6 layers of veneer. And it's going to be a bracket that attaches a bumper to a car. We're gonna talk about that. Now I don't bore you with it. No, I'm gonna kick Mark's ass in a contest, that's all.
So when it's all, Roger, when it's all dried up, how will you clean up the action?
Well, I do it really simple way. Probably take maybe a block plane and try to get a basically clean edge, and you can run a curved piece through a jointer. I'd like to use blocks. You can run it through, you can curve as you go through. Basically, that's it. Or if you're made it real thick, you want to really thin it down, you can run it through the planer. Thickness planer. Or sometimes I'll make a curved piece because I need 2 of them. I'll make it double wide, saw it on the bandsaw, which is always fun when you have loose edge.
Hey, Roger, you might mention, for you guys that are thinking of doing bent lambs like that with 16th inch stock, certainly wood has an increasing number of species of wood veneer that comes 16th inch. So in the amount of time it would take you to make those shop built ones, you can cut them out of a piece of veneer and you're home free in a fraction of the time. You can't get every species, but the common ones, they do stock.
Good point. They sell a lot of it. You get a different width, 8 foot long. So if you need a lot of strips of 16th to build up thickness. Okay.
Say you didn't have a drum sander or you're worried about your thickness planer, is it good enough to, like put on, just run through the table saw real thin? I mean, you have your plate, custom plates, so you don't have a gap between your saw and your cutter. Have you, would that be just asking for not being accurate enough? Or?
No, that would be good if you have a nice sharp table saw blade.
Yeah.
And I've got one that makes a nice smooth cut. Almost don't need to do a jointer to the edge glue.
Yeah.
That would work. You're wasting a lot more wood. Okay. Obviously, it turns into sawdust. And then if you're really going for the grain on the glued edges to be disappearing,
Sure.
you're creating more of a problem perhaps.
They're pricey, but you get 1/16 inch saw.
Or you can get a bandsaw blade that's really top quality bandsaw. Some of those will make a nice smooth cut. Frankly, this is on my bandsaw blade, and I'm not seeing any gaps with this. So
And you didn't run that through the.
this one hasn't been run through the sander. You can come up and take a look afterwards and see where it is. The other way to glue laminations is a 2-piece form. Considerably more tricky. Way back in the old days, when I thought I knew everything before I knew anything, I thought, cool, I'm just gonna make this double curve. Just make one saw cut through, put the pieces in, and glue it together. No, it doesn't work. Why did I have all these gaps? Because the bottom curve is a smaller curve than the outside curve, and vice versa all the way through. So you have to accommodate that by this is one way. Take your, if you're really good with your hands, drag the point along your first curve, make the line. Keeping this absolutely perfect. Or some people do that, make the first line. And they'll calculate the width. And start to make marks. All the way, little arcs all the way, and then connect with the curve, French curve, connect the points. So how, if you're gonna do it with saw two pieces, and you make a mark, you have to calculate the thickness of your piece that's gonna be glued up, which is the thickness of like these, plus any liner. Some people use for mica, a thin strip to line both sides gluing form. So you have to do the total thickness of your lambs and any liner, and that's the distance then you calculate to saw the second piece. And you put your pieces in, cut crap out of them, tight. Right? It's worth experimenting. Because you can do a lot with Zoom plans. It's pretty straightforward. You know, the calculation of this is not that difficult. Maybe your manufacturing or ability to saw it correctly twice might perfect it. You can, however, use this full of sheeting stuff, of which I will give away. And you align each side form with that, and that can make up for some of the gaps in your form. As you know, Mark's piece is really nice for making panels. If you needed something structurally really strong, I wouldn't use bendy ply because it is not, it's not beefy for something that you're really going to be reefing on or sitting on or rocking back in the chair or something. For a cabinet side, you're not going to be bending the cabinet side or reefing on it or anything. For a chair leg or a chair back or a back and leg combination, this is pretty strong. Actually, probably stronger than a solid piece, maybe not. So you get a lot of strength and you get a lot of rigidity out of bent lambs. This is just another form because one of the things you find, you see I put the handles out, put them on the inside and break it knuckles. So in another bigger form, I just drill holes, put the pipes in, right around. I didn't put a back on this, but it does help, again, to block, pound those down so we have a nice even edge. Because they want to creep that stuff. All right, now that's pretty quick on all of this stuff. There's another way to do bent laminations in a vacuum bag. Some of you may remember I made a piano. It was in the show. Basically, it was the case of a grand piano. I was using bending ply, great big long strips. I had two halves, that was this shape and then the other shape of a grand piano. Would not fit in a bag. I was not going to go out and buy an 18-foot bag, 4 feet wide, spend all that money. So I got my pieces the right width and the right length that I needed. I made a form so I could attach these things to the form, but I put all the pieces in a bag. I did buy a slimmer bag. I didn't need it. Put all the pieces in the bag with glue. Put a little pressure from the pump, not the complete pressure. And then I clamped the bag to the form. So the bag was out, the bag and the pieces are outside the form. They're glued or clamped to the form. Craig Gents made a fantastic bench you may have seen online or at the show. he has a big spiral, a whole wad of 16th inch sash veneer, big long strips. He put all of those in a bag, clamped it here with a few extra helping hands. Then round, fixed it, then round, fixed it, then round, fixed it, and then turned on the pump. And then set them all together until it glued right. So that opens up some creativity for you, doing bent laminations, thinking of putting them in the bag and putting the bag with the form. There's some stuff you couldn't do in a bag as it is. That crazy, this piano wouldn't fit. So there's bent laminations, nothing to it. Get some saw some nice strips, keep them track, put them back in order. Remember that, so that they look nice on the edge.
Mark said, oversize your piece so you can trim and square, and it's the same hold true here.
Same holds true here, as he said, how do I get the glue off the edge? By the time I get the glue off the edge, the size is gonna change a little bit. So I make my, in this case, the strips a little wider, and especially if I'm gonna shape it a little bit afterwards as well. Okay, this was a simple curve, simple U-shaped curve. You can do all kinds of curves. There's no, the only limit is up here. I think I'm done. Any other questions? So this curving stuff, these. Easier.
Before I start, I find at my age, I'm getting a little bit, I start to fade in a lot, so. I have 3 chocolate boosters for everybody. You're extra tired, thank you. So anyway, so I am gonna talk about steam bending. I'm kind of referencing a Veritas handbook. And I took a picture of that. It's a free handbook. So, or you could go to Lee Valley and find that, but you could also just take a picture of that. It's 16 pages long. This is 2025. People don't want to read 16 pages anymore, so I had ChatGPT summarize it in 1 page. So I'm not going to read it, but there are steam bending is not new. It depends a lot on the species of the wood, how tightly you can bend it. And preparing the stock is also really critical. And I'm going to get into that a little bit. Why would you steam bend? I think that's been kind of covered already. But you know, furniture design, I think, is really why big reason why we would be interested in steam bending curves, not straight and flat, but curves. And I think we could have a quick discussion about types of lumber. There's flat sawn and quarter sawn, which I'm not going to talk about, but there's ribbon. And that is where you split the wood. And why would you split the wood? Well, so that the long wood fibers go with the board. And so this can sacrifice the straightness of the board. And lumber yards like to make straight lumber. So they're not grinding it. But the advantage of grinding is then that the grain, it goes with the length, and thus it's stronger. And I'm going to be trying a steam bend today. I'm going to try and make a cake. And so there's a lot of stress going on right here. And so if the grain is not going with the board, then that's asking for it to break. And so this board and the board that I have in my seed box, I did rive it. I got this from my nephew. He was cutting down an ash tree. It looked like a really nice log. When I split it, there was a knot on the end, which I cut off with a saw because splitting lumber is a lot more difficult when there's a knot. But anyway, once you have the knots out of the picture, then splitting is really fun. A good rule is to always split in half. You can see I have two half portions split there. And so then again, the long wood fibers, they're going with the board that I'm making. The board might not be straight, but I'm gonna bend it, so that's not really the point. So then I do kind of bend the rules at the end here. I did run this on my bandsaw to make the 3/4 inch square board. But it's still pretty close that the grain goes right with the board and whether or not the board is straight. If you haven't split a log, kind of fun, here's the tools. I have my mallet and my axe. These are my for splitting. This one is my favorite. It's got a very gentle taper on there. These more blunt wedges like this one here, when you pound it in, it'll tend to pop back out. Whereas this narrow angle tip works really quite well. And I like to have a hatchet, and this is a pro, more for if you're if you're getting to narrow boards that you're splitting apart, then you can use a pro by twisting the pro. But I only have so much time today, so I can't go into great detail on it. I need to keep an eye on it's like I'm over on I wanted to talk about a table that I had made a number of years ago. This is the top. It's been steam bent, but like Roger was teaching, it was also laminated together. I have one of these boards. I steam bent this board here. It was a square when I steam bent it, about 3 inches by 3 inches. And I made a metal press to do it. And like Roger was talking, an S is a little bit more complicated than an arc. So I had two hydraulic jacks, this jack over here, and then there is a jack over here that's pretty much hidden, that's pushing this down. So this was a square. I did wrap it in plastic so that it'll hold its heat for a little longer. When it's thick like this, it really takes a lot longer to make sure that you're heating up the core. So I pretty much steamed this for pretty much a half a day. And this is the board that I had steam bent, and this is the one that's next in line to be steam bent. Another complication of going thick is that then you have to worry about drying it out, because you're going to be drying out the outside faster than the inside. And if you dry that too fast, it's going to crack. And here was my method in my semi-smart house. I just hung an old fan and plugged it into a smart outlet, and then duty cycled the fan, just so that at the beginning
lumber wants to dry really fast. But in this box here, it's also susceptible to mold. So just enough, occasional, a little bit of air to make sure it doesn't get moldy in there. And then as it starts to dry, it slows down. And then I ran the fan faster. And I watched some videos online from Brian Boggs. He makes pretty nice chairs. And he said woodworkers should have a moisture meter. And so I did buy a moisture meter. This is an Orion. It was probably $400, but it's pretty slick. It's not a pin type. It actually takes the average going into the wood away. And I verified it occasionally by weighing and then drying out a piece in the oven. And this is pretty good, I think. Anyway, I was talking about this table and how complicated it gets when going thick. And so I was drying slowly at first, and then using my moisture meter, the rate of drying slows down a lot. So I switched out the fan for a space heater to push it further. And I think I got it to 8%, maybe 6%. So pretty dry. And then it's pretty much set. And then I was really doing Roger's technique on a big scale where I glue together strips. But in this case, they've been steamed. Okay, enough on that. I've also done Windsor chairs. And in my opinion, if you want to learn about how to make Windsor chairs, Curtis Buchanan has this series on making them. It's like a 54 YouTube series. They're about 15 minutes each. And I have made Windsor chairs. Most of the parts traditionally are made of hard maple. And what I find is hard maple, you really have to bend it when it's freshly green. Otherwise, you just can't get the moisture back into it. I bought a hard maple log, turned out to be almost perfect. So I ended up with a great excess of what I needed. So I steam bent a whole bunch of chair parts, thinking someday when I have time on my hands, I'll make some chairs. So that's that. I do want to take a station break and emphasize again that the Woodworkers Expo is October 11th. We have 75 participants as of today, so the room is going to be full. And we have, I think, 30 new vendors this year. So it's going to be full and it's going to be new at the same time. So we encourage you to be there. We also encourage you to help us put this on. This year we've decided that we're going to take some of the door prizes and we're going to dedicate them to volunteers. So if you didn't win anything tonight, like I did, well, you can volunteer at the Woodworkers Expo and the odds are better. Okay, I think the hardest part of steam bending is probably the bracket to bend it with. In this case, I got it. This is a plumber pipe hanging material. This is probably my third version. And again, we're trying to make one of these. My early versions, it would like to squish out, bend out on the straight part. So somewhere, yes. So now I've got this bracket that I need to remember to put on. And I'm gonna wrap it around this wheel. Steam is hot, so I got my mitten here. But once I get it out of the steam box, then it's not so bad. So I usually take my glove off as soon as I get away from the steam. My steamer over there is probably a one of a kind. Everything else has a horizontal steam box. I really kind of like it this way because I have a small hole in the top and in the bottom, and I can casually see that there's steam coming out the top and the bottom, so I know there's not a cold spot. I think if you have a horizontal box, you need to be careful that you don't have a cold spot on the bottom. But to me, this is somewhat foolproof. The other nice thing about this is steam boxes are wet and they make a wet spot, and this minimizes that size of a wet spot, and it's more portable. Anyway, I like to make my steam box for every project. You can see I didn't spend much money, so that it kind of fits the piece that I'm steaming.
What kind of pipe?
It's just PVC. It's just from Menards. You know, it's
Don't bend.
it is deforming some. Yeah. But I probably steamed 10 or so times out of that pipe. It's fine. Again, I would say I would like focus on prepping the wood to use ribbon wood that's been split if possible. Check the moisture. This is at about 20% moisture before I steamed it, and then this contraption here is something to put your effort into, probably more so than the steam.
So you're actually steaming green.
Yes. Yes, I am. So now's the moment of truth.
Before you do that, could you move the camera so we can see it? Is that
Let's see. Okay.
Or do you get clean wood?
Yeah. You know, Craigslist is one option. You know.
Listen for chainsaws.
Or look on the Craigslist or marketplace for firewood.
So look at the storm chase.
Field classifieds.
Field classifieds.
I get somebody probably 2 or 3 times a month that contacts the guild offering wood. And they think it's very valuable. And I always refer to storm trees and to wood from the hood, but I also focus on classified, so.
Yeah, storm trees will be at the expo, and they have said before that they would sell guild members logs. So that might be a business.
Your municipalities, like in Bloomington, they're going around with a company they've hired to trim the wood, the trees away from the power lines. And they're always nice size, and they're put them in a chipper. But you can contact your municipality to see if anything's going on and where. And it's free.
Yep. Yep. Okay. So I'm going to unplug this. And then over here. Have it between here, and again, I have this piece of metal because I want to compress the wood. I don't want to expand it. And expanding wood is another name for breaking it.
want to compress small. Diameter. I'll do it before it gets too cold. Okay. So. Right. It's actually bending pretty well.
You're strong.
Okay. That's
Awesome.
You hold it all night now or?
It's halfway over there in my box, but.
Which box?
Yeah.
On the floor.
No, on the floor. It's guys. Any questions?
One and done, you don't get a second chance at this.
I would definitely plan for failure. Definitely plan.
Ron, do you build a drying form? Plant that too when you let it cool a little bit?
Yes, like that, that table that I was showing, I did have a dry form for those big ones.
Yeah.
And I'm currently kind of into making lamps and a lot of the parts are small, so I put a drying form, and then my spouse has an oven that has a proof setting, which is, I don't know what that means. It means low temperature. So I put it in the oven for proof for like 10 hours. And then after it's cooled down, it's good to go.
Another question, when you build a bending form, you add 10% bend or something to count spring back?
I think probably the one cause of can be if you haven't treated the core of the wood the same as the outside. Like again, that big oak board that I bent, it's a big concern about getting that core hot enough so that it's not going to act like a spring to create spring back. But I don't think there are hard and fast rules in steam bending. You need to plan and make excess so that, and then make a few pieces and see where you're at. And then adjust accordingly. It's, I don't know, every tree is different.
How long did this steam?
It was over an hour, but when I was doing it at home, 45 minutes was enough for 3/4 inches. Yeah.
So you have the metal strap for a thin piece. I've tried some steam bending boards of the kerf, make like a First Nations block. So you've got a lot of wood to compress. What other materials have you used to keep the fibers from busting out?
I mean, I will use like this example I was showing. This is actually a steel plate again. Oops. I can't see it. This is actually a steel plate. Does that answer the question? I don't know.
What do luthiers do? Because they got pretty wide.
You know, a lot of times, correct me if I'm wrong, Roger, they use a hot pipe, right?
Yeah, Luther's?
Yeah, Luther's.
Yeah, do hot pipe bending, which we didn't do tonight, because it's all another. But you soak the wood and have a hot pipe with a flame behind it, run it over the pipe and let it, you can feel it. Oh, what?
I think Stu Mac has them.
They do.
Yeah,
If you would have just taken that piece of wood, put it in the bathtub for a month, how percentage would that end up? You said that was about.
I dare
that
you
one
to
was-
try it.
Well, how much when you bent it?
You know, hickory, I have good luck bending without steaming. Thin pieces, then, like I said, I like making lamps and they're fairly thin. And I don't bother to steam, I just soak them. But it again depends. You know, I think hard maple is horrible for reabsorbing moisture.
I'm just curious because you had that nice moisture meter.
I haven't done the experiment is the short answer.
Are you talking about kiln dried maple or air dried?
Even air dried maple, I find is hard, once it's dry, I have a hard time bending it. Even if it's nominally at 15%.
I just make one comment.
Yeah.
You guys did a great job. It was really fun, but I'll just mention my bread and butter is pattern routing. It hurts. Yeah.
We're sorry you feel bad.
Just there are other ways.
So next month?
Okay, let's go a little water.
Next month is Expo, so there is not a program next month. But everybody should plan on coming to the Progress Building at the State Fairgrounds on October 11th. And our November program, Matt, is at Willie Willette's shop on November. Get this wrong.
I can't remember.
It's on the website.
Second Tuesday, yeah. I think it's the second Tuesday, yes.
Second Tuesday.
And his shop is in Northeast Virginia.
And it's on, and that, all that information's on the website. Yeah. Be a great program. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks for.